From KAMR Local 4 News, your local election headquarters, this is Politics Today.
Some good news for the North Heights area. Years after having water problems, some help is on the way. And we got the chance to sit down with former U.S. Representative Beto O'Rourke why Democrats are rallying in Amarillo more often. More than a week after canvassing the June 7th runoff election results, David Prescott is sworn to the Amarillo City Council. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Jack Kessler. He's now the councilman for Place 3. Outgoing Councilman Tom Sherlin was there to say a few final words. Then Councilman Prescott spoke about how he hopes to serve the city.
To work with all four of those other members, including anybody that needs it, what's going to make the best decisions to move the city forward, period. Politics have to be put aside. Politics, it's a four-letter word. I don't want any part of it. I want to use the skills that I have to make Amarillo better.
Prescott goes on to say that he is excited to learn what the city is operating on and how to allocate funds to help the most people. A short time later, the Amarillo City Council approved a construction contract for the first phase of the North Heights 2-inch water line replacement project. Here's what this means for those living in North Heights.
The community approached us and said they were having issues. We were aware of the issues. So it was really a combination of the utilities department bringing those issues in front of council and council giving us the authority to move forward and get a bunch of these water lines replaced.
This contract for over $1.2 million will replace 2-inch water lines and replace them with 6-inch water lines in hopes of better pressure and water flow.
Distribution system there in the North Heights obviously needed to be addressed. It's a larger distribution area there. We have some 20-inch lines, 10-inch lines, 8-inch lines. But the lines that run through the alleys, which is what we're addressing, is the smaller 2-inch lines.
James Allen, a community advocate for North Heights, says he is happy the city is addressing this long-standing issue.
A little bit inconvenient while they're working on it, but for the long run, it's great. And what's important is they're going to fix these lots where now people can build, new homes can come in, new businesses can come in, and they can rest assured that they can tie into lines that can support the need.
The item was listed as the first phase.
I would say 75% of those lines will be upgraded at this time, and then we'll go back and do an evaluation for phase 2 and say, where are problems still existing and what do we need to address them?
This is not a one-off. This is going to be something they're going to be doing for years, because those lines are over 60, 70 years old. Every day they're getting worse. So what they do this year, they're going to need to start addressing more lines for next year.
Danforth says that they have 100 working days to do the project, which he says is in essence is 5 to 6 months. He says they anticipate that project starting in the next 3 weeks. All employees of Amarillo ISD are receiving a 2% pay raise. The board approved that measure earlier this week. That's on top of the pay raises expected out of House Bill 2. The legislation was signed by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and promises between $2,500 to a $5,000 raise, depending on how long the person has been employed.
Being able to hire more people and help for our classroom teachers is always a help to keep our classroom teachers in the classroom. Our teachers don't do this for pay. Yes, pay is good, but our teachers don't do it for pay. Community support means more than anything. Supporting the teachers in the classroom as they do the job, the grand, heroic job of teaching our kids.
The board is waiting on further direction from the state of House Bill 2 before they have a clearer picture on how many employees will receive the additional raise. The board also approved the next school year's budget during their special meeting. As we previously reported, their last budget proposal didn't include House Bill 2, which funds public education. Officials approved the budget knowing there would be changes to their funding going forward.
Well, so this budget that we passed today is not the budget that will be the end budget after HB 2, House Bill 2 was signed by the governor. Those details of that budget, including the raises for our teachers, will be added as an amendment in the upcoming months as all those rules get written by TEA and all those things are applied.
They're expected to take up amendments to the budget in the coming months. Potter County Commissioners Court is once again discussing the Potter County Detention Center. This as commissioners are looking at ways to solve the overcrowding in the jail. Here's more from that meeting and what commissioners decided. On the agenda related to the Potter County Detention Center, hiring a project manager, hiring a consultant to look at jail population trends and needs, and a contract for architectural services. The Architectural Services passed 4-1 with Potter County Commissioner Precinct 3 John Coffey voting against it.
You can only kick the can so long, and the only thing you're going to have is a dented can. So I think expedience is as important as getting the details. You got the details, now it's time to go to work.
Coffey made a motion to hire the consultant. No one seconded that.
I just want to build exactly what we need, no more, no less. And I'd like to have a 20-year plan. I'd like to have an idea of what we need for a future so the citizens aren't paying for this multiple times. I don't know if it's going to be 288 beds or 300. I don't have any idea. We don't know really what we need.
And the commission postponed the project manager discussion.
What we're going to do is I'm going to get with each commissioner, talk with them, and press them, and I'm going to come back on the last or the fourth Monday in July and put that up for vote. I just want to get everybody get the information.
Coffey says one idea that is being considered is adding on to the current jail, a plan he is not a fan of.
I don't know that we need to be building on to a facility that may not last another 10, 12 years. I don't know.
Coffey says now that Burns Architecture LLC has been approved, they hope that they will start meeting with the commission pretty soon and they can look at a 90-day window to have some ideas and initial plans on where they might build or add and what the cost might be. Coffey adds that then they will have to look at how they are going to pay for it, whether that can be issuing certificates of obligation or have a bond election. He adds he favors a bond election so citizens can let their voices be heard. The state of New Mexico, along with the New Mexico Environment Department, have filed a lawsuit against the United States and the United States Air Force. According to the court documents, the state of New Mexico is claiming the U.S. and the Air Force violated the New Mexico Hazardous Waste Act of 1978. The plaintiffs claim the U.S. and the Air Force have failed to take corrective action addressing the release of PFAS into the air, soil, sediment, surface water, or groundwater at Cannon Air Force Base. Contractor will pay more than $1 million after reportedly overcharging the U.S. Air Force at Cannon Air Force Base. Documents show Noble Supply and Logistics LLC was in charge of supplies and materials for upkeep of the base's infrastructure and civil engineering needs. It alleges that the contractor would present higher prices for local vendors and withhold the lowest vendors' bids, which caused overpayments. The contractor denies the allegations and says that the settlement isn't an admission of liability. Texas Governor Greg Abbott reaches his deadline to sign, veto, or leave bills that have passed alone. We'll talk about one of his top legislative priorities and his surprising decision. Plus, legislators approved money for the Texas film industry, how that impacts us locally. In a surprise move, Texas Governor Greg Abbott vetoed a bill banning THC shortly before the deadline. In his veto proclamation, Abbott said that the law likely faced valid legal challenges and wants an approach which won't get held up in the courts. However, the bill's largest advocate, Dan Patrick, isn't buying Abbott's reasoning, saying he has other motives.
The governor of the state of Texas wants to legalize recreational marijuana in Texas. That's the headline, folks.
Our Austin Bureau asked Governor Abbott's team about Patrick's statements. They responded with a statement saying, in part, SB 3 was well-intended but legally flawed, and this is why he is putting it on the special session agenda so that it can be fixed, improved, and signed into law. He should not risk years of potential legal battles when we can fix the bill and protect kids now, end quote. During the 89th legislative session, the Senate approved SB 22, which directs the controllers to deposit $500 million in the Texas Moving Image Industry Incentive Fund every 2 years until 2035. Politics Today's Maya Clark has details from local film and media officials on the potential impact the revitalized program will have.
A boost to the film incentive program and a potential boost to local economies.
It appropriates $1.5 billion out of budget, and what that means is that that money is not cannot be taken away, it cannot be reallocated. It's before the budget goes before the legislature. over the course of the next 10 years.
Doherty says since Senate Bill 22 passed, Sharp and Iron Studios has received an influx of calls regarding what the bill accomplishes, changing rebates, and how to apply for the program.
One of our goals here at SIS is to turn Amarillo into the Hollywood of the High Plains. That's what this is going to do. Amarillo is such a great location to film in such a wonderful film-friendly town with a community, city council, county commissions that want film here.
Film Commissioner for Visit Amarillo and the Greater Amarillo Film Commission says overall it's about economic development.
There are a lot of folks in Texas that work in film, but often they go somewhere else to work in those films, whether it's Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, etc. And more projects in Texas allow more Texans to work in Texas, to live in Texas, and make a living here.
Bass says Amarillo and surrounding areas are a great place to film, and the increase in film incentive allotment makes filming in Texas more competitive with other states.
Amarillo is great because of our topography. We certainly have some urban settings like downtown, and we have great neighborhoods to film in, but we have beautiful canyons, Palo Duro Canyon, the river, Canadian River, mesas, just about every kind of crop you can imagine, all within a 50-mile radius of Amarillo.
Doherty says the governor's office anticipates that for every incentive dollar spent, the local economy will see $4.69 in direct impact, meaning about $8 to $9 billion in return on investment. He's no stranger to politics, and former Representative Beto O'Rourke was back in Amarillo last weekend. We sat down with him ahead of the rally with other lawmakers. We'll hear from him after the break. Beto O'Rourke has made a career in politics, from being a city councilman to U.S. representative and presidential hopeful. He made 2 trips to Amarillo in the past few months, recently touring with Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Greg Cesar. Politics Today's Princess Bryant sat down with O'Rourke before the rally.
Back in Amarillo, after just having been here last month, where we held a big town hall where we welcomed Republicans, Independents, Democrats, everyone to come together and focus on how we're going to get this country and our state back. And here we are a month later, this time joined by Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressman Greg Cesar and other local leaders to continue the work on the same. Because places like Amarillo far too often are an afterthought for the Democratic Party, if they're even thought about at all. You have these extraordinary local leaders who've been carrying the weight and the burden on their shoulders this whole time. So it's wonderful when you have people like Senator Sanders show up and add their voice and their energy to this fight, and no longer write off these parts of the state. Just to give you an example, the consequences, in 2024, Ronnie Jackson didn't even have an opponent on the ballot. That's a congressman that Democrats can beat with a message of expanding Medicaid, of raising the minimum wage, of stopping these endless wars in the Middle East, including this new one we're about to get into in Iran. But in order to do that, we have to field candidates, we have to have that local support, and we have to have the energy of the Democratic Party, not just here in Potter and Randall County, but across the state and across the country.
And tell me about the tour that Senator Sanders is taking. He's kind of picking cities that are those more conservative cities across the country. Why is that important?
You know, I feel like the Democratic Party over the course of my lifetime started to write off whole sections of this country. And so we can't blame voters in places like the Panhandle or these other places that the senator is visiting for not choosing Democrats if Democrats have not chosen them. So it's high time that we show up again and we listen to one another and we fight right alongside each other for the things that really matter to us in our lives. You know, making sure that you can see a doctor, making sure that our local schools are funded so that our teachers don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Raising the minimum wage in Texas from $7.25 an hour to something that you can live on by only working 1 job and have time to spend with your kids or go to the movies or take a vacation. These are just common sense bread and butter issues that Democrats stand for. But if Democrats aren't showing up and helping the local Democrats here in Amarillo, then we can't be surprised that Democrats continue to lose. So my hat's off to Senator Sanders and everybody else who is in this fight doing the right thing and not just going to the easy, typical, regular places that you typically see Democrats. We've got to show up everywhere and fight for everyone.
On the administration, tell me about the administration on the state level and kind of the issues that you see with this so far.
Well, here we are in the least insured state in America, one of the last to not take Medicaid expansion, which is ironic because this state, through Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1965, actually came up with the Medicaid program in the first place. But what that means, Princess, is that you have children who are dying of diabetes faster and more than you have in any other state. We are the epicenter for a maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for black women in the state of Texas. In other words, we have people who aren't healthy enough or well enough to finish their education or go to work or raise their kids or do whatever God placed them on this planet to perform in the first place. And that is not right. That's a decision that's made at the state level. The defunding of our local schools through this voucher scam, that's hurting teachers and educators and administrators. And most importantly, it's hurting kids. It's hurting the future of this state that we so desperately depend on. These are decisions that are being made at the state level. And
we'll hear more from O'Rourke after the break. This area is known as a conservative community, but along with more Democrats hosting rallies in Amarillo, the city has also saw a surprising number of protesters during the No Kings Day event earlier this month. Politics Today's Princess Bryant spoke with former Representative Beto O'Rourke about this event and more.
You mentioned No Kings. We just had that protest nationally last weekend. Tell me, what was your reaction to that? Have you seen something to that magnitude before across the nation?
I'm so proud of what Amarillo did. You know, the people who showed up by the hundreds, perhaps by the thousands in this community, they weren't just Democrats, they weren't just Republicans, they weren't just independents. They are people who in some cases have never voted before, have never been politically involved. In other cases are too young to vote right now, but they understand the moment of truth that we're in. They understand that what we do or fail to do right now will decide the future of this country. And they're not going to be found wanting. They're going to take action. So whether it's here in Amarillo, in my hometown of El Paso, or in thousands of cities across the country, we saw everyday Americans rise up against the tyranny and the would-be king in Donald Trump and so many of the illegal, corrupt activities of this administration. And yes, it gives me hope. It's inspiring. It's cause for optimism as we move forward. These are very dark days. We are on a very difficult, a very tough road, but we have to take some hope in what we saw during those No Kings protests. People aren't accepting this. They're not rolling over. They're not submitting it. Whatever the leaders in the Democratic Party might be doing or might be failing to do, everyday Americans, the real people here in Amarillo, are rising up. They're standing up to be counted. They're raising their voices to be heard, and it's really making a difference. And I think that bodes well to produce the public pressure necessary to stop some of this illegal behavior on the part of our president. I think it bodes well for Democrats' chances in 2026 to win political power so we can stop some of these things from the state legislature or from the United States Congress. And I think it bodes well for this country continuing this really proud tradition of being a democracy, a constitutional republic of men and women who are governed by the rule of law, not kings, not tyrants, not illegal administrations like the current one.
Once at the rally last weekend, several people spoke. Unfortunately, Senator Bernie Sanders wasn't able to make it due to being called in for an intelligence briefing regarding Iran. They did have him on the phone, and he gave a short speech to people there. The Globe News Center for the Performing Arts was at full capacity. We're even told that they turned a few hundred people away. We'll wrap up Studio 4 after this. Keep it here. He was one of television's most honored journalists and also a former White House press secretary. This week, Bill Moyers passed away. He died Thursday at age 91 at New York City Hospital. His career ranged from minister to deputy director of the Peace Corps to President Lyndon B. Johnson's press secretary and jobs at CBS News. He was also well known for producing hundreds of hours of PBS programming on a number of topics. You can stay up to the latest political news with us this week. We have continuing coverage on our website, myhighplains.com. Plus, you can check us out on Alexa, Instagram, and like us on Facebook. Once again, I'm Jack Kessler. This is Politics Today. Thanks for joining us.